Bonjour.
We're selling keg beer to drink on draft. I think that really fits with the way we see beer. Is it's very much something to go out and sit with your mates and have a catch up, and you do that sort of over a pint at a pub in a sort of space away from work, away from home.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Breaking Bread, the Birmingham food podcast presented by food obsessed mates Liam and Carl. No Carl this week doing this intro. He was here for the episode obviously, as you're here, but he's not here to do the intro with me because he's off on his holidays, so I've had to just quickly nip on and do this one myself, which is fine. Obviously it's not as good without my brother from another mother being able to bounce back a bit off us and tell us about some of the things he's been cooking and eating. We've started getting a bit longer with the episodes, and that's something I don't really mind, to be honest. We never set out to make anything short, or we have no time restraints. It's the beauty of podcasts. We get to be free and just let the conversation go as the conversation goes, and if it takes an hour, if it takes an hour and a half, if it takes two, so be it. And that's the way we love it, and we wouldn't change it, and hopefully you enjoy that too. As I said, as the episodes were getting a bit longer, we've cut down on the intros a little bit, so if you are missing out on listening to where we're going eating and drinking, and I know a lot of you do message and say, oh, we love that little go between before, well, you can get all of that now over on our newsletter, which is Breaking Bread Bite Size. As always, the link to sign up to that bi-weekly email is in the show notes to this, and you'll find it all over our socials and stuff like that. We're always trying to plug it. Have a look where we've been eating. Also, we get new events on there, and any kind of Birmingham food or drink news, we stick it on there. Any new openings, stuff like that, we try and get them on there as well. Keep you all in the loop, see what's happening in Birmingham and the food scene, because it's changing fast all the time, which is, it's good, it's exciting. Thank you to everyone who listened and took the time to message us and tell us how much they enjoyed last week's episode with Sam Bolton. Absolute awesome dude. Sake sommelier, owner of Shibuya Underground and Pineapple Club. Thanks for listening to that. All of our episodes, they don't go anywhere. They're always online. They're always on Spotify and iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. Just go back and listen to them. Thanks for, as we said, taking the time to message us as well. We love getting feedback from you, and it kind of makes it all worth it, really. Realise there are people out there who love it. Obviously, we're on this mission now to tell people how amazing Birmingham is. Yes, so if you love Birmingham too, you can help us by listening to this podcast, by subscribing, following us on Spotify. That really helps with the algorithm. Rating, reviewing us. I think you can review us on Spotify now. That also really helps get us more listens. Today's episode, it was great. Really, really good episode. We're going mad deep into beer. We're with Oli from Attic Brewery. Oli's the sales and marketing director. Obviously one of the founders as well of Attic Brew. Really good conversation. I mean, yeah, it's beer based, but obviously I don't drink, and there's more to it than just talking about beer. But just a really great company. What they're doing in Stirchley now, doing amazing things. The Taproom's exciting. They got the street food there, and just a really, really cool place. Great night out. They're trying to get back to the fundamentals of the pub and what beer kind of was. It was a social thing where people, neighbours especially, got together and had a chat, something that's probably happening less and less on your normal day-to-day street. I think that's what the pub's all about, isn't it, really? Really grateful for him coming on the show and talking to us. Really appreciate his time. Ladies and gentlemen, Oli from Attic. We're pretty much doing the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, we do that so many times. We'll just start talking to someone, and then we're like an hour in, we're like, oh, we should probably record this, and then we have to go over everything we've already talked about.
So we do intros separate and just more of kind of what we've just already been doing. And Oli, welcome to Breaking Bread, man.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Cool, man. We're in Attic Brewery, loving it.
In the brewery, so excuse the noise if you can hear any.
Yeah, it's authentic. It's meant to be like this.
Man.
It's got to be noisy. It's a proper space, isn't
It's
it?
industrial. That's what Birmingham's all about.
How you doing anyway, Oli?
Not too bad, thanks, lads. Not too bad.
Good, good.
Yeah,
It's good to have you on. We've been on about it for a while.
yeah, for about the last 3.5 years, I think.
This whole season is just us going around people we asked 3 years ago and
I know,
finally
yeah.
getting them on like
We're like,
proper
we
society.
should probably get the people we've already asked on to get the podcast.
Next season, you'll do the best of album.
I feel like it was better that we've waited anyway because we're better at this, kind of, arguably.
Oh yeah, we're the best we've ever been. We only get better.
And then obviously you've come a long way since them early days when you first started. So we've kind of started the podcast at the same time you started here. It was about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we started November 18. We opened for the first time. So I don't know when did you guys start? When was your first?
November 18.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All the same.
We have a joint birthday party.
That's how I remember now. I'll just look out for Attic's 4th birthday party. I'll be like, oh, Liam, that's when we started.
What were you doing? Because we'll get to obviously Attic. It will all be about Attic. But what did you do before this?
So I was working in London in advertising, which is not the most exciting career really, if I'm honest with you. And
It surprises me because it sounds like, as you said earlier, we were talking about it, it's like you watch Mad Men, you think, oh, that's a good job.
yeah, what it really is just like a lot of people who like getting drunk a lot, and then like also going out for dinner a lot, and
Does sound
not
good.
much work that actually
Yeah, that
actually
does
goes
sound like
on.
a good job
But
then.
it gets a bit hollow after a while. But yeah, no, I was sort of basically doing deals with big websites for them to buy for us to buy advertising space from them, for us to serve adverts that would be based on your cookies and all that. So yeah, I was one of the bad guys really.
Everyone says that. You know what? Someone's got to do the job. It's not that bad. Were you from Birmingham originally? Or?
No, I grew up in Bristol, and then I was living in London at the time. But I went to uni with my partner, our other director, Sam, and he's a Brummie. So we sort of like.
He's dragged you here.
He's dragging me, kicking and screaming.
What did you study at uni? Was it
nothing relevant at all? No,
Advertising, marketing?
I did physiology, which is like the science of how the human body works, which is completely irrelevant to everything I've ever done since. It's kind of an advert for kids not to go to uni. But no, other than that, it was useful though, because it meant that me and Sam met, and then that's where sort of Attic was born, really. Yeah,
we were saying before we started recording. So you met in Cardiff, so it was definitely worth going to uni to get to meet Sam. You met him in the Arms, was it?
Well, we lived together actually.
Oh, did you?
That was sort of like the City Arms next to Millennium Stadium was where like we'd really started getting into a beer, I think, and and Sam started home brewing in his bedroom, and. Yeah, it sort of went from there. It was like a bucket in his bedroom under a blanket. It was where it all started.
Was that because you were poor students though, or just because you actually liked the thought of doing your own beer?
The original idea was because we were poor students, but I think very quickly, and Sam was always the brewer. I never really was, but very quickly it kind of became just like something that Sam would spend his money on improving rather than saving any money doing it. It became a money pit rather than a saving.
That's like most hobbies though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Well, I visited a lot of people at uni, and you do find buckets in their bedroom, but it's not normally like for making beer.
Yeah, well, maybe sometimes it doubled up. Isn't it?
The aftermath of beer.
What were them early pints like?
Yeah, they were terrible.
Nothing.
I'm sure he won't mind me saying.
So it wasn't intuition straight out of the way.
It wasn't. No. It took a while to get to that point, and even probably 2 or 3 years ago, we weren't making anything close to that. So it's been a steep learning curve for sure.
So what was the grand plan when you were in the pub? Was it like we should just start making beer, or was it we should start making beer and then one day we'll have our own brewery? And
Do you know what? It was never really a grand plan, I think. So like I say, Sam always just enjoyed doing it, and he just got more and more interested in it. And like I say, I was pretty hands off really. I might drink it from time to time, take advantage of it. But no, it wasn't really until like way after uni, and like he got really into it. He converted his attic, hence the name, into a brewery. So actually, it's not very good for a podcast, but you can see on top of the bar there's some sort of
the old bar.
That's our old kit on top of the bar, so anybody who comes, you can see it on top of there. And
that's where it all began.
That's what we had in his attic up until we actually started this. But yeah, he's just got kind of like more and more into it, and it sort of just started honing his skills really, and sort of working it out.
Were you living in London while he was brewing it in the attic?
Yeah. So we just sort of like we'd meet up like all our uni mates from time to time, and Sam would bring along some beer, and then next time we'd bring along some better beer, and then eventually he was just like, I want to start a brewery, and I was the mug that said yeah to doing it.
So you eventually got to a point where you tried one, you were like, this one's fucking nice.
Yeah, to be fair, so he brought along like a little wall of taps to a weekend away we had, and we were all like, yeah, these are all really good, man, these are really good. And then I think he probably had a few, and he's like, I want to start a brewery, let's do it.
Was it at this point you were kind of getting a bit fed up with your job anyway, so you were like,
I actually, it was perfect timing, because I had a really like shitty week at work, and I was just sort of really fed up with it. And he said that, I was like, yeah, you know what have I got to lose? I'll come and live in Birmingham City. I'd never barely even been to before. Just drop everything and come. So, and then after that, it was just sort of, I don't think either of us ever expected it to actually go anywhere, and we kind of thought one of us would say no. Just eventually we'd come to our senses, but I think we kind of egged each other on. Neither of us wanted to be the one to like let the other one down. And before I knew it, I just sort of I'd quit my job and I'd moved up to Birmingham, and I was just sort of like.
So that was always with the intention of we're going to set up a brewery.
Yeah. So it was a decision that we sort of made, and then we sort of like went through the motions of doing it without really kind of, I think, considering what we were doing. And I think now if I were to do it, I'd realise it was quite a big decision. But at the time, it just felt like sort of, I don't know, something fun to do.
It's probably good that you didn't like overanalyze it though. Was it analyst paralysis or something like that?
Yeah, I think I probably would have done that. Yeah,
would have talked yourself out of
just
it.
Didn't really give it any thought. And,
just come through. Something you can kind of do when you're younger as well, though, isn't it? Like, it's fuck it, let's just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best time to do it, isn't it? When you've got plenty of time to pay off the mistake.
Yeah. Still paying for it now.
Well, I was about to say it wasn't really a mistake, because here we are, and
I know, in a massive brewery. I mean, you've got to be the biggest one in Birmingham.
I think we are, or certainly when the new kit comes on.
I was going to say you are now.
I think we will be.
The size of them towns. I know this doesn't work on radio, but they're massive. There's loads of them.
It's good. It's encouraging everyone to come down, check them out.
It's definitely worth seeing. It's impressive. It's very like technical, professional looking, isn't it? Like,
yeah. So we're really excited to. So this should hopefully be up and running by next week, and we're really excited to use it, because it is kind of like, whereas what we have been on up to now has been very manual. It's very which basically means that it's quite. It's very difficult to get things to be consistent. We've got to work really hard to make sure that all of our processes are exactly the same, and that, it comes down to sort of, with one person there with what is a big paddle, mixing everything up and trying to get that as even as possible. For instance, well, this is kind of a pretty state-of-the-art kit that we've got now, which will kind of do it for us and make sure it's a lot more consistent, and makes our life easier, and probably makes the beer better as well. I think we've kind of reached the limit of the equipment that we're on now. And this, I think, will help take us to the next level, which is really exciting to do. So we can't wait to get our hands on it.
It's a big investment as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and this is sort of like it's a bit weird to say this, given that the last 2 years have probably been the worst time for the hospitality sector in living memory. But it's kind of worked out in a way that it's allowed us to get there, because the government have been basically a lot more generous with funding that they're able to give, and loans that they're happy to give out. Otherwise, there's no way we're going to afford anything like that.
No.
But sort of weirdly, as a direct result of COVID, we've been able to get something we never would have been able to have. So I guess it's just looking for the silver linings, I suppose.
So how did you come across this venue? What made you pick Stirchley? Was there a reason for it, or was it just what came up?
Well, it was a bit of both, really. So we were looking. We knew that something was interesting was happening in Stirchley. So sort of even when we started, sort of, we were looking probably 3-4 years ago. There was already some interesting stuff going on. So Birmingham Brewing Company were already here, set up. Wildcat was here. The British Oak was here and sort of had a relatively good reputation. There was interesting things going on around beer here, and obviously we had Stirchley wines, Cotteridge wines that have been here for years. So that had it going for it. But we were also looking in Digworth, we were looking in Jewellery Quarter, because they were also places where there was interesting things going on. It just so happened that the unit we're sat in now, which is our tap room now, that sort of came up on the market. It was right next to the train station. It was right next to Bourneville, which we knew didn't have any pubs. And it just felt like it was the right space. It felt way too big for us at the time. We thought sort of, well, how are we going to cover half of this room up so that it doesn't feel really cavernous and empty. But yeah, we sort of took it on because we couldn't refuse everything else that was great about it, like location wise. And when we first opened the doors, then suddenly the place was full and we didn't really know what to do with ourselves. So so it was really nice to sort of see it's kind of, I put it down to a real testament of the community sort of spirit around Stirchley and Bourneville, as to how quickly the sort of word of mouth had got around and people knew there was something happening and people were all really up for coming out for that first night. And it kind of it gave us a really good example from the get-go, sort of how good a place we'd ended up sort of happening upon.
Yeah. People from Stirchley, man, they're ferociously proud to be from Stirchley. I've said it before, whenever we first started doing the Instagram for the podcast, it was like anything we stuck on from Stirchley, like people messaging, oh yeah, love Stirchley, Viva Stirchley, fucking great job coming to Stirchley. It's like, fucking hell. I don't know anyone else that's as proud to be from a certain part of Birmingham as the people from Stirchley. Well, Bearwood's pretty fucking fierce as well, man. People from Bearwood, they're like, yeah, Bearwood's the best, man. Thanks for coming to Bearwood.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, because I think that we feel it from being here as well, and you see so much interesting stuff and so much great stuff going on particularly in terms of like independent businesses around food, around drink, around all sorts, that you can't help but be a bit proud. You can't help but being proud of what's around the corner.
Also, this the rent in the city centre kind of forces all the cool things outside the city centre. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's there's no chance that we could get anything like this anywhere near the city centre. To be honest with you, absolutely not. It's just too much space, and it's just I've heard some silly astronomical rents that people are paying in centre that are looking for spaces that are like maybe half the floor space of this, and they're just paying crazy money. But it's because that was where all the footfall, at least where it used to be. I don't know about anymore what footfall's looking like sort of since everyone started working from home. But
it's a shame though. Imagine something like this, like on like New Street or on one of the main streets in town, like just off the ramp. It'd be fucking class though, wouldn't it? Like, would be so good.
It's weird at the moment. You go out on some nights not expecting it to be busy and everywhere's heaving, and you go out another night where you think Saturday it's going to be heaving everywhere tonight, and then it's fucking dead everywhere. Like you're pissing in the wind trying to guess what Birmingham's going to be like.
I've given up trying to predict anything nowadays. I've spent the last 2 years trying to predict things, and every time I did, it was wrong. So I've just sort of given up, and I'll just see which way the wind takes me now.
Yeah, I bet. I think a lot of the success, you could be wrong, you were one of the first people to start canning as soon as sort of lockdown hit. I think out of all the local sort of breweries, I remember seeing your cans and I remember ordering them and you dropping them off.
Yeah.
Like way before other people were getting their cans out.
So again, I think that was a bit of another sort of mix of...
That wasn't the intention judgment. When you originally opened, we're going to can and sell.
When we originally opened, no. But certainly after a few, like sort of the year or so of trading that we had, we kind of realised that we couldn't help it, but most of our beer was being sort of sold through the tap room because it was taking up sort of we were only a really small brewery and that was as much as we could brew. But we knew that we needed to kind of diversify it a little bit. We didn't know what was around the corner, and we had no idea about COVID at the time, but we knew that there was always something that could happen. And we thought, well, maybe the landlord might change his mind about us and kick us off or something like that. So we knew we needed to sort of make the business side of it as away from the tap room, so we could sustain ourselves if the worst were to happen. So we bought this really knackered old canning line in November, December 19, so just before the pandemic. It didn't work. It needed so much doing to it, so we never really did anything with it for the sort of few months that we had it, because we just sort of didn't have time. It wasn't like a pressing need, and then suddenly our whole sort of business was pulled out from under our feet. And then so Sam's a bit more technically minded than I am. He's spent his sort of the first 2 weeks of lockdown with his head just buried inside of it, working out all the little bits that were wrong, and it just sort of meant that within 2 weeks we had a workable option. We had something we could still make beer, we could still sell beer, and it just gave us the flexibility that I think other people who weren't in that position didn't have quite that. So most breweries our sort of size would be, and maybe less so now because people have been forced to change, but they were having to get in sort of mobile canners, people to come in with a canning line.
I bet that was way more like, I bet that canning machine you bought was way more expensive 6 months later.
100%, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we actually sold it for the same price we bought it for, and we'd done loads of work, so we were the good guys up there. Probably could have made some more money, but we upgraded it sort of fairly quickly, really. Again, with one of those friendly government loans that they were being so generous with, because it just it couldn't keep up at that time. But for that first sort of few months, it was a complete lifesaver because we wouldn't have had anything else to do to keep the business going. So it was a mix of luck and judgment. Luck in terms of the timing, and luck that we had the sort of foresight to do it. But
that's something that's going to continue, I presume, because you're in every decent off license that you go to.
Yeah, definitely.
At least 5 or 6 different attic.
I think mostly we're kind of I think certainly at the moment we're mostly a draft brewery. We're selling kegged beer to drink on draft. I think that really fits with the way we see beer. It's very much something to go out and sit with your mates and have a catch up, and you do that sort of over a pint at a pub in a sort of space away from work, away from home. It's sort of third space, people call it. And I think that's really what I like about it as a drink. But then also there's a whole sort of other area evolving, which is sort of like people wanting to drink interesting beer in other places as well, and it just gives you so much more flexibility to be able to do that. And so I think it's quite like an exciting bit in the future, and I want to see us producing more. And it also, the really nice thing is that it kind of helps us to spread out a little bit further from Birmingham, and sort of, I don't know, I think Birmingham's not really always been the best city at shouting about itself, sort of past its own borders. and it's nice to be able to do that, and I think cans kind of help us to spread our wings a
national coverage now.
Starting to, I think we're starting to get. I'm starting to see things and sort of comments from people on social media, and sort of messages from people turning up at the tap room who've heard about us from all over the place, and it's just really nice to see. And I guess we spoke before we started recording, I think about sort of about Birmingham and about how great a city it is, but it's just sort of, it doesn't necessarily get the rep that it deserves. I think it can sometimes people can look down their nose at it a little bit. So I guess it's just nice for us to be a small part of sort of trying to change that as a mindset. And
put you on the spot a bit, Oli, but what did you think Birmingham was before you came, and how was it when you came here? Like, was it better than you expected, or?
Oh, it was totally better than I expected. Yeah. Like I was definitely in that camp of, I'd never really been I'd heard from sort of anybody I'd spoken to, it was just it's a bit like sort of a bit grey, sort of like they've got this thing here called brutalism, which nowhere else in the country seems to have much of. But yeah, and then as soon as I came in, it was just sort of like it's so much more vibrant than that kind of that impression was sort of I had as somebody who'd never really spent much time here. Like, there's just so much more interest, so much more going on, and so many more interesting things. And like, I think that it's almost a bit of a hidden city in that if you know where you're going, you can find some like absolutely amazing things going on. if you just sort of turn up out of New Street, you might not turn the right direction. You might end up in somewhere
you end up on
not,
fucking Broad Street.
Yeah, you might.
It's like, oh fuck. Well, you
Yeah.
speak to people outside of Birmingham. They go, oh yeah, I went to the Arcadian when I got off the train. I was like, oh, that's why you fucking don't like it.
I feel like other places do a better job though of hyping themselves as well. They're like Manchester's and Bristol's always seen as somewhere cool, somewhere young, somewhere like.
I think it doesn't help that Birmingham's areas are all completely spread out, whereas you get to Manchester, it's like 3 areas to go out, or Liverpool, there's 2. Like Birmingham, you've got Moseley, Kingsheath, Stirchley, fucking Harborne.
Yeah.
Then you've got the different parts of Birmingham city centre itself, like Digbuff. Like that's always been my favourite, like one of my favourite places to go anyway. But then there's the Jewellery Quarter. Like it's so spread out, and you do need to know where you're going a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Without a decent underground as well to kind of get you there.
I know,
like,
yeah,
you know.
no real link between any of it.
Yeah, because like London has obviously got that like massively, but every like borough of London is so big, sort of as its own thing. It's all quite. They've all had a chance to establish their own little identity, and they've all got quite a lot going on. And I think Birmingham, until sort of fairly recently, there's been some amazing places, and they've all been quite spread out. And now they're starting to get like little pockets of places that are all close enough together to go for, you can go for a full day out in the Stirchley, you can go full day out in Digbuff, you can go for a full day out in the Jewellery Quarter.
I could give someone a 5-day itinerary, all in different parts of Birmingham, and fill each day.
So now we're getting to that point. Then it means that wherever somebody sort of turns up, unless it's Broad Street, like they're gonna have a really good day, and then they'll go back to wherever they've, Bristol or to Manchester or wherever, and go like, I had a great weekend out in Birmingham. I went to all these different places, and there was just like loads of different but equally interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helps. We've now got people. There are people pushing it, but it tends to be local knowledge that seems to be the way forward. Like I get people even from Wolverhampton, they'll say, like I work with, and they're like, I'm going into Birmingham, where do I need to be going? Because even there, Wolverhampton's not far, and even in there, it's like they only know about Broad Street.
Yeah.
They don't like. I mentioned someone that's coming to Stirchley. I think he might have been here on Saturday, actually.
Oh, really?
And I mentioned to come here for the rugby, but even he was just like Arcadian thingy, and he lives this side of Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
And he didn't know any of the places. I mentioned Digbuff to him. He's like, "What's Digbuff?" It's like, "What do you mean? What the fuck's Digbuff?" It's like the greatest drinking road in the world.
I think it's also because we grew up here, we just assume everyone knows it as well. Like,
It's just given to us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only just starting to sort of like get a real feel for it, and I've been here for 4 years. So.
Yeah. There's definitely a market in getting people into the city and showing them where to go, or organising drink sessions for people.
Yeah. Oh, maybe there's something in that.
As long as I get an invite, I'll do it.
We'll three of us. We'll start getting minibuses in. And
You could do like a brewery tour now, really. I know we could do a few more breweries. Or how do you feel? Do you feel like we could do a few more?
Well, I think there's definitely room for it. I mean, I think that I mean, there's so many other cities, smaller cities than Birmingham, have got loads more breweries and lots bigger breweries. I mean, we said earlier that we're probably the biggest brewery in Birmingham now, and we're still a really small brewery. You look at other cities in the country, and they're breweries that are masses bigger than us, and they've got several of them that are masses bigger than us, and they've got way more breweries than are in Birmingham as well.
How many did you say was in Bristol?
Bristol, I think somebody told me the other day they've got 26 commercial breweries in Bristol, varying sizes. I think like 4 or 5 of those are bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Which sort of when you put that into the perspective of Bristol being what's like 300,000 people, something like that, I think
It's a lot smaller place.
and I don't know how big's Birmingham, like Greater Birmingham.
It's over 1 million people in Birmingham, isn't it?
It's huge.
And there's I think there's 8 or so. It depends where you draw the line, really, but there's about 8 breweries in Birmingham, which is it's just crazy, like the difference in magnitude.
Do you think it's because we're so chain heavy, or
potentially? I've been asked this question a few times, and I don't really know why. I haven't been able to sort of put my finger on why Birmingham's just been a bit sort of slower on the uptake. I think maybe that's part of it. I think maybe, I don't know really. I think maybe there's sort of there's a bit of a sort of hangover from some of the sort of massive breweries that sort of have been in Birmingham previously and have since sort of gone, and I don't know, maybe that's sort of put a bit of a circuit breaker in. I don't really know. I'm sort of guessing really, and I don't think I've lived in Birmingham long enough to really be able to comment. So,
would some of the chain pubs would they have your beer in their pubs, or?
It depends on the chain. So generally speaking, the larger chains, it's pretty difficult for us to get into. It depends on the chain, depends on various different things.
I've got a little knowledge on this, not a lot. So would there be like a main supplier who supplies to all them pubs that they would come to you for your beer, or?
Again, so I think that you get the really big national chains. They've probably got a certain number of name suppliers that they will use, and they will rarely buy centrally, although sometimes they will do. Now, sort of certainly for local stuff, they would have direct deliveries, but you have to be able to supply X number of pubs, and you have to be able to make it work for the chain commercially, so that basically our price has to come down. When you start to get a little bit smaller, then there's loads of different ways of doing it, and everybody works differently. But yeah, I mean, it's either working through. So we do sell to some wholesalers who will then have a list of various different things that they can provide, which one of which might be and then generally speaking, tends to be on the sort of single or sort of very small chain, sort of independent focused stuff that we would sell to directly. But things are all sort of like, it's all pretty jumbled, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So you've not got Sainsbury's knocking on the door?
No, we haven't got Sainsbury's knocking on the door.
How would you feel about selling to such a big chain place like that? Would it alter how you view the beer?
I would say I think that it's a weird one, really, because the industry has definitely shifted over COVID towards that, and I think that there are some breweries that have done it well, and there's some breweries that have done it badly. And I don't think it's something that we would want to do particularly. But you never know how things are going to go, and I think that COVID is really fresh in everyone's minds and how sort of precarious it was for so many breweries. Then other than the ones that were selling the kind of volume that they do to somebody like Sainsbury's. But I don't really ever see us as being a big enough brewery, because we don't really want to be a big enough brewery to supply, like a full national supermarket or anything like that. Because, like I said, we want, our main focus is and always sort of will be what's directly around us. And like we said, there's more than enough people in Birmingham to sustain us as a brewery, and to be where we want to be. We don't want to be.
It's nice to be.
Don't want to sort of take over the world.
Thing as well, I suppose. Like you go to York. Well, I went not that long ago. Like you go to Brew York, when you can get their stuff pretty much everywhere. It is in all the shops.
Yeah.
But it was nice to go to the brewery, and had I not had it in the shops, I think I'd have enjoyed the brewery even more. Like it'd have felt like more of an occasion going there. 'Cause where else would you try it?
Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of it. And we'll sell beer all across the country, but I think that we just don't have that desire to be this massive, like Brew York are a massive brewery.
Yeah,
now.
huge.
I think they've got two breweries that like next door to one another, sort of that each of them are about double what we've got. So like, they're huge. I just kind of think that that's where if you want to really sort of entertain the supermarkets and all that, then that's the sort of thing you've got to do. And we're kind of like quite comfortable being sort of a decent size for the local market.
Yeah,
that's it. But you never say never, and because you never know what's around the corner, and I think COVID's kind of shown that. So but that's definitely where I sort of see us now.
Remember when you were a teenager, like, and especially us, because we were like into like heavy metal and stuff, and you loved like a band or a music, and then as soon as it got really popular, then you kind of went off it because everyone else liked it. Is that like beer? Could it be like that? Sometimes I do feel like that.
Careful now.
Because sometimes like even I only drink alcohol-free beers because I don't drink, but sometimes like it was so much better before it was in Sainsbury's and everywhere. Sometimes I do feel a bit like that.
Like a cool sort of aspect to it.
I like to go to Stirchley Wines, and they've got like a massive selection of alcohol-free, and it's some of it you've never ever heard of before, and I'm like, I'll get some of the mad ones, like especially Christmas. That load of wicked Christmas ones in there. And then it gets like Michela. I know they're arseholes and everything else, but like I used to enjoy the In the Sun, and there was like there's a website you could buy it all through and stuff like that. And as soon as I got into Sainsbury's, I was a bit like,
They're not called.
I don't like it anymore.
No, it's like there's other brands as well. Like there's one that we definitely wouldn't say the name of, but I mean,
but the most people would know. You mean
most people would know it from a craft beer scene, and like they do have some alright beers, but they're just so big now, and even without knowing the disgusting fucking attitude that people behind it have, it's just I don't want to drink it anymore anyway.
And I think it's not just that. I think there genuinely is a quality thing because, well, for several reasons. I mean, frankly, a supermarket is always going to hammer you down on price as a brewery.
Yeah.
And with that means you've got to make some certain concessions in terms of our costs. If we were to do it, for instance, then we suddenly have to skimp on ingredients a little bit, or find another way to sort of save some more money, so we can still continue to A, meet a price, and B, actually be able to survive off of that price. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, really. I think that it forces breweries down a bit of a hole. I'm sure there's breweries that are doing it really well. I don't want to tar everyone on the same brush, but that seems to be, and certainly with some of the breweries that have been into supermarkets longer, that seems to be sort of like the road they go down. They have to, the only way they can sort of, when you get to breweries of that kind of scale, then they're really just looking at the individual margins they're making, and all of every little penny they can make on each beer really makes a difference. And so they're just having to change some of the hops they're using, maybe use a bit less, find a different way of working with it, which maybe affects the final quality of the product a little bit. And then the other thing is that supermarkets, generally speaking, it's gone through a whole supply chain, whereas at best it's probably been waiting, sat around for 3 months, ready to be drunk. And beer is a product that is definitely best enjoyed fresh, as fresh as possible. So when it's been sat warm for a while, especially in the summer, it really affects the quality. So it's kind of nice to see, in a way, that the mainstream is paying attention to breweries that aren't Heineken, that aren't Carlsberg, that aren't Carling, but at the same time, it's kind of the magic that makes those breweries special kind of gets a little bit eroded at the same time. We'll see how that sort of whole sector plays out, because I'm sure I've heard various sort of little birds at times saying, Tesco, they'll put fridges in and make sure everything's really perfect, but I can't really ever see that happening, to be honest with you.
No.
You see the cages outside sometimes, though, when they've had deliveries and stuff. You wonder how long they sat outside, Yeah.
At the end of the day, a company that big, this staff are never going to care about the product. They're just there for a job, aren't they? So
kind of similar to that is you touched on obviously the big boys there, Heineken and Coors and Carlin and all that. What a lot of the time they're doing now is they're actually buying some of the smaller kind of craft brewers and then kind of not telling anyone that they've bought them.
Yeah, it can be a bit sneaky sometimes, the way that they do it.
I understand why they do it, because obviously it appeals, and sometimes as well, going back to the cool aspect, as soon as you do find out that your favourite craft beer has been secretly owned by Heineken, you're like, oh, fuck them.
A couple of London ones that come to mind straight away.
Yeah.
You look into the history, who owns them, you're like, oh, well, that's...
Yeah.
I wonder,
but that's easy for us to
shit now.
That's easy for us to say as fans, but as a business owner, if Heineken came with a big check, would you ever?
I think that
it'd have to be a big fucking check.
A big check, yeah.
Move into the Caribbean and start.
I think that right now we're so young that there's so much that we want to do with it, and our goal has always been to find as a people sort of you read business books and about listen to podcasts, and everyone always talks about what's your end goal, what do you want, and for a lot of people it probably is to sell, and I'm sure that if Heineken came in with a big enough check, then we might have our head turned, but really that's not really what we're after at all, because for the whole sort of reason that I've said, we want to be here sort of for the local people, really, and
is it a lifestyle for you as well as a business?
It was a lifestyle, and now I want to get to the point where I can turn up and work 9 to 5, realistically probably 8 till 6 or something like that, but then just go home and it kind of I not have to worry too much in the evenings, but I can just sort of work a good day's work, get home, and it just sort of everything kind of just works, and it's just a nice place to work with people I like, and that's kind of I don't think either of us ever wanted to be like sort of mega rich or anything like that. And I think if we did, we were in the wrong game. But I think there is definitely like I'm hoping fairly soon we get the opportunity to just sort of like have a business that just ticks over nicely and it all kind of just works. Everybody's got sort of enough work for themselves and not having to take too much on, and just I don't know, everyone can just sort of be comfortable. Maybe I'm dreaming,
mate.
But like that.
Hey, I want it to run itself and make loads of money, and then I can just stay at home.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I didn't even say money. It's just the lifestyle.
I guess I just want to go home and put my feet up on an evening and then have,
There's nothing wrong with that.
But
because people see this place is only open for a few hours, like at the weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, but obviously we just found out you're here at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
I was like, Jesus Christ! So it's a full-on kind of day, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I mean, like our sort of standard hours that we're open are probably like maybe 8 till 7 o'clock. That we've got people here, and sort of most of us are here for pretty much that whole time. And that's us as the two that own it, and then everybody else who works here as well. Everyone puts in a real shift, and that's it's not short days because there's a lot of stuff to do, and actually making beer is quite labour intensive. Yeah, there's quite a bit to do on a day, so we're always trying to find ways that we can kind of shorten that down a little bit and make everyone's lives a bit easier, but without a bit of investment, it's quite difficult to do.
We kind of started by you saying Sam was doing most of the brewing. So how involved are you now, like full-on brewer as well?
No, so I don't tend to do much brewing. I'm not really interested in the brewery anymore. When I come into the brewery, I tend to break things and everyone gets annoyed with me. So we've got a team of brewers now who are all far better and far more skilled than I ever was. So actually, both me and Sam now we're sort of a bit more general business focused, and we've got people who actually know what they're doing, making the beer, and that's why you can probably taste that the beer is a lot better than when we first started.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How different is, say, probably the most popular beer is Intuition, because that's the one you see on tap everywhere as well. How different is Intuition now to when you first opened?
Well, we didn't start with Intuition. So we kind of at the very first we were sort of brewing different beer every week. I mean, we kind of wanted always something new to give to people, something new and interesting for people to drink every week. So every week it would be something new, and there was never anything on all of the time. And then it kind of got to maybe a sort of about a year in, and everyone was kind of, we had enough people saying, "Yeah, I really like that one. Why did you take it off?"
Why are you not doing it?
Well, because we've got this one now. I said, well, I preferred that last one. And I think that Intuition was the point at which we kind of realised that A, they were right, and we did need something that was consistent, and B, that we kind of had settled on the rest, because we'd spent a lot of time sort of working out what we were doing, and we thought we kind of knew how to brew, and as soon as we actually started, we kind of realised there was a lot more left to learn. And Intuition was where we kind of felt like, okay, yeah, like we think we've got a recipe now that we're really happy with, that kind of ticks the boxes we want to. It's got loads of flavour, but it's not too sort of heavy or cloying. Like you can drink 4 or 5 pints of it and be fine. So it kind of ticked a lot of the boxes that we wanted to tick as a beer, and we kind of just went, okay, right, sort of like this is going to be our first beer that we kind of keep on the taps and keep producing. And then after that, it's only very sort of like minor tweaks that we can make without people noticing it.
Yeah.
And so we quite often we do tweak it. We do tweak it as a recipe, and we do sort of improve it. So I can't remember exactly what it tasted like now as the first batch, but I think that if you put the two side by side, you'd be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
But actually, it's just sort of evolved so gradually that you don't notice it you don't notice it sort of like from each beer you drink, but you do sort of like overall you end up with a better product and a better beer that you actually probably enjoy more, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with it.
It really is, and it's
in popularity and people.
Well, it's an incredibly popular beer. Like it's on all the cool pubs have Intuition on tap, and it is fucking phenomenal.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Like if I say it, like that's it. There could be anything else on tap. Like I don't even notice them. It's like, oh, they got that. I'll have that. Thanks. It's like the first go-to beer.
I made me blush now.
How does the recipe development work? So Would one of your brewers come to you and say, like, we've got this idea for this beer, and you and Sam would say, oh, just go make it and we'll have a taste. Make a small batch of it, we'll have a taste and take it from there. Do you have a discussion about it? Or?
So, generally speaking, no. So we've got our head brewer, also called Sam, confusingly, different Sam. But so me and I tend to sit more like the kind of I do more like sales, marketing, kind of how we sort of outwardly sort of interact with people, I suppose. So but sales is a big part of what I do, and so me and Sam, our head brewer, will sit and like every week we'll sit and have a bit of a catch up. Say what we'll try and plan a few months in advance what we're going to do. Sort of what do we need, what do we want, what kind of beer, who are we trying to appeal to, who wants to drink this beer. We try and have a lot of variety on where, particularly in the tap room. We're trying to have beers for a lot of different people, and so we're just trying to kind of take all that in to what sort of beer we want to brew, and then we kind of have a broad think of the kind of style we want versus what we've already got available or what we're going to have available at that time, and what we think people might want to drink, and then he'll go away and generally speaking he'll write a recipe. He's got sort of masses and masses of knowledge of sort of what each individual ingredient will do to a beer and how it will interact, and just to kind of build a picture of the finished product, and then that's what we're doing. Generally speaking, it works pretty well. I think at some point we probably will want to start trial brewing things, particularly if they're quite ambitious things.
Has he ever come up to you with anything really ambitious? I want a sort of caramel imperial stout or something.
I was going to mention actually we've just today. It's funny you said that. Just today we've done a very, very ambitious trial brew on a very small kit, which we'll sort of just see how it goes. Well, it's quite nerdy really, so I won't get too into the details. But basically, just changes sort of some of the malts we're using quite considerably, just to try and produce a beer that is. Well, I don't really know how it's going to turn out, to be honest with you. So, generally speaking, we're using malted barley for everything we do, but we're using a different kind of grain. I won't go into too much detail about it yet because I don't know if it's going to work. But
it's not ready. You haven't tried it yet.
We're hoping that it'll be a really sort of interesting, very tasty beer, and B, it might even be completely gluten free. But this is a very sort of preliminary thing, so we don't know what's going to go on yet. But we've got high hopes for it. They've done a lot of research, but that case was one of our brewers, Tim, sort of came to us and said, I want to do this. I've got this great idea. Can we see if it will work? And so now he's had a go with it today, and we'll see if it works. But
what sort of time frame is it from idea to tap?
We at the moment we've sort of scheduled our brews about 3 months in advance. So we're trying to come up with those ideas and look at what we think the picture will be like in 3 months' time. But that can change quite quickly. So sometimes it'd be like, well, what we're going to do tomorrow, we need to see what we've got available and see what we can make that will fit this style. So it could be as short as a day for an idea to actually come out, and then for actual beer to brew. The day itself will take a day to actually produce what will become beer. It gets added to a fermenter, and then yeast go to work on it for generally around about 3 weeks, and then finished beer comes out at the end. So sort of the process itself is about 3 weeks, and then the sort of ideas and sort of working out how we're going to do it can take however long we want it to take. Really.
Yeah. Do many come out where you try it and you're like, oh fucking hell, no, that don't work?
Occasionally, yeah. Occasionally, we've done more than 250 beers now. Yeah,
wow.
I think we're about nearly 280 beers now.
Shit.
And obviously, not every one of those is going to be perfect. So yeah, sometimes things don't come off. Things go wrong at various bits of the way. The equipment we're using at the moment, we can't control anywhere near as much as we will be able to control on the new kit. So that it just sort of introduces chances where things can go awry. It actually needs to be quite, in a lot of respects, quite a tightly controlled process to actually produce something. So if something goes wrong, you can end up with a very different beer coming out that than you intended, and then that can throw off a lot of the other sort of flavour considerations you've given to the recipe. If that one bit goes wrong, then the other things don't. Sometimes they don't quite sort of melt together. Occasionally, you can happen upon something you never really expected to have. But luckily, we've worked out processes for, by and large, that work well. But there's always a wild card that'll come in there and throw things off.
I can imagine. And you've also done quite a good few collabs.
Yeah,
with people to come with beers. What was the idea behind starting them off?
So I think, it's sort of within the sort of world of quote unquote craft beer, it's quite a big thing. It was always something that we sort of pre-pandemic we shied away from a little bit. I think we were still sort of working on ourselves and our own beer and trying to sort of make sort of with what we knew, trying to make the beer as best as we could. And then after that, we kind of felt like we'd got to our limit, and then we can reach out and we can speak to other people, and we can sort of start to have a bit of cross pollination of ideas, and it kind of lifts. It's a sort of rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing, and you speak and share ideas with other breweries, and then everybody kind of learns from it, everybody takes something away from it, and everybody kind of ends up a little bit better. Yeah, that was kind of it, and we kind of really wanted to start doing that and start getting other impressions, input from other brewers, and be able to sort of pass on our knowledge on to other people as well. It's known as a bit of a collaborative industry.
Yeah. You've done it in interesting ways as well, because it's not just other breweries, because you've had collab with Zoe.
Yeah.
Punker Chance is one of our faves. And Udi and Moo.
Yeah.
So you had the ice cream beer.
Exactly, yeah. So that was a really cool one, actually.
Yeah, it was. I tried that one.
I've seen a couple of people do ice cream beers, sort of collabs with ice cream places that they're trying to make a beer taste like ice cream. Obviously, Burning Soul do that really well. We didn't really want to go down that route. We're all vegan as well, so quite often people will use lactose in those beers to make them taste like ice cream, because we've sort of made that commitment to. This is an accessibility point really, to make sure that sort of vegans would know they're always able to drink our beer. That was sort of off the cards for us, but really wanted to do it. So we kind of came up with the idea of doing this event where we'd pair the beer and the ice cream, made a beer to complement the ice cream, and then we made a beer float with it, sort of for the weekend. We were offering that, and it was wicked. It was really cool. It's just just trying to just push the envelope a little bit, I suppose, and just be a little bit different with how sort of two companies can interact, two sort of different like food types really can interact, which is cool.
Well, especially on a hot day, like if I was sitting here and I seen that and you're putting ice cream and beer on a boiler, I'd be like, you know what I'm getting next.
But it's important as well for the brands to kind of relate as well. It'd be no good if you went like to Wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there has to be a good fit, like.
Definitely. And I think that's where the Punks and Chancers collabs have come in really well, is because a clothing brand and beer don't sort of immediately sound like they'll make great sort of a great sort of partnership, but actually I think that the brands themselves really, and us as people, just get on well, and we love Zoe and Dave, and I think it's just like a really fun sort of environment to be around, and I think we probably give something similar back, at least I hope so. Yeah. So it's just sort of like I don't know, it's kind of a bit of a sort of, I can't say what I was about to say because it'd be really embarrassing. I've caught myself before I said thought collaboration. That's the pressure of the microphone making me speak. I don't really think like that.
So, were all your beers vegan? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, we did it sort of from. It's not always been the case, but from fairly early on, we decided that was a pretty easy thing for us to do. There's not much that we can't add, so the only things really that make beer not vegan are lactose, which I mentioned, which are usually in sort of a milkshakey kind of things, and isinglass finings, which are what they use quite often to sort of clarify beer, and wine, to be fair, as well. And those two are kind of two things that we didn't really feel the need to use. Most of the beer we make isn't clear anyway, so we thought it wasn't too hard for us to not use the finings that wouldn't make it vegan. And then lactose was something that was just something we sort of sacrificed for the ability for us to say, well, okay, like this section of people, you're welcome here as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, there was just sort of an easy decision for us really to do that. So,
well, if you seems like one of them things, if you can do it and it tastes great, then well, you might as well just fucking make it vegan, and
Yeah, exactly.
It's not something you scream and shout about, though, is it?
Yeah, we used to write on the side of every can that we were always vegan, but I think that it's quite a sort of close.
I was going to say, you worried that might go the other way. Like some people might be like, "Oh, I'd rather not."
We had one or two sort of snarky comments about it, but most people don't really care because
you do get some idiots who are just because they say the word vegan, that's it. Oh, I'm not having that vegan nonsense, you know.
Yeah,
I suppose you wouldn't really want them in here anyway.
We've had to have a few like calm words with people where we say, like, you do what you want. We're not. I don't really mind what you do. We just want to have it so that as many people can drink our beer as possible. But yeah, in most, like 99.999% of people, and absolutely no problem at all. Or even we're really positive about it because they can drink the beer. So,
well, I've never drank an Attic beer and gone, "Oh, this one's vegan." Oh no!
Like any beer? Have you ever drank any
drank a beer and gone, "Oh, this one's vegan"? Taste the vegan in this one.
Yeah. I knew this would be shit.
I think there's a lot of beers that we accidentally vegan that don't even tell us. So, that's most often probably in terms of like craft beer would be accidentally vegan anyway. So it's just because we've sort of. It's just a nice thing for us to be able to tell people when they come in and say, "Well, I'm a vegan. Which one of these beers can I have?" And we can say, "Well, take your pick, whichever of them."
Feels like a good name for a beer, that, doesn't it? Accidental vegan.
Accidental vegan, yeah. It's going to be the Breaking Bread collab you're doing next.
The two most anti-vegan, well, not anti-vegan, but the two least vegan people ever.
Yeah, I mean, you might accidentally do it. You might have a chip butty or something, and then
yeah, you don't think about it.
Well, it's like Frazzles, isn't it? They're accidentally vegan.
Are they?
Are they? There you go. We were talking about this the weekend.
Yeah, I don't eat pork anymore, and I was looking at bacon fries,
which is Frazzles, isn't it? Same thing.
Yeah, I was like, these have got to have pork in. I'm like, I went to pick one up, and I was like, oh, can I eat this anymore? And I was trying to look on the pack. I was like, where's the V? Come on, where's the V?
They probably don't want to shout about it because it shows there's no bacon gone anywhere near Frazzles.
Yeah, fuck all pork.
So we're sat recording this in the awesome Taproom, and it's open. It's open to the public. Anyone can just come in. Yeah. And you have sports on. They had the rugby on. Do you show more sports, or is it?
Generally, it's just the rugby. So we usually show, and we always do show. Sorry, the Six Nations. And then sort of
Super Bowl.
And the Super Bowl we've shown a couple of times as well. I'm a big American football fan, so
I wanted to come down for it, but I was working the next day. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you did. You said you wanted to come here.
Yeah, I really wanted. I just couldn't get it off work the next day.
Trying to convince me to go, and then you couldn't get it off.
Next year, I'm definitely coming here for the Super Bowl.
We'll show it again.
Who's your team? I'm
a 49ers fan.
Oh yeah, nice.
So, but yeah, it was a great evening. So next year you'll have to come
next
down.
Year I'm coming down.
Who's your team?
I find it hard to find a team, but
you found one now.
Jets. I've got because I've been to New York and I'm Irish, and they're playing green, so it's got to be Jets, isn't it?
Well, you haven't got much chance of seeing them in the Super Bowl, mate.
Nah. So. You just feel sorry for Rodgers though, because he's like a superstar, and he's the only good player, in an awful team, but. We've lost half of our audience here.
Yeah. And me.
And Carl.
Yeah, they might have to edit that bit out. So.
But so what I was getting at is you have food here as well sometimes.
Yeah, so every weekend we've got different street food vendor on.
Is that vegan or?
No, not always.
Sometimes
but we do try and make sure that there's always something for everyone to be able to eat. So 99% of the time there's always a vegan and vegetarian
they've
option.
Usually always got a vegetarian or vegan option.
We do ask them to make sure that they can bring something because obviously we sort of if that's something we've said about our beer, we want to make sure that people can come and eat the food as well. And they generally do quite well on that sort of side of things. So I think there's there's definitely a bit of a community there that will come and the vegans that will come and drink the beer and eat the food. But it's not something that we go. This is the only food we'll have at all, and we've got all sorts of people come, all sorts of different vendors.
The vegan Mexican, what they called they look
went on there.
Yeah,
they're really good.
I want to try them.
They're really good.
I've always fancied it.
But then like I say, it's not just vegan stuff. We've got barbecue stuff going on all the time. Like I don't know, all sorts like chicken, no problem. Like it's just sort of everything under the sun, and we're a pretty broad church in that respect. As long as everyone's got a bit of an option, then yeah, it's all good. So yeah,
the girls who do the chicken, they've been here a few times. What's their names now?
What the cluck?
What the Cluck.
Yeah, fucking
we love What the Cluck.
I had them a lot.
They're really good. They always do well as well, because I think everyone's exactly the same. They go, oh yeah, wasn't planning on going for a drink tonight, but I might have to go and have a bit of chicken. So.
Yeah.
It's a good match though, isn't it? Chicken and fried chicken.
Fried chicken, you know what? Fried chicken, like for me.
Same in Mexican, though. Mexican's good with beer. Food's just good with beer, isn't it? I love that.
Well, I'm always surprised to go to a lot of these fancy restaurants, wine tasters. You could easily do a fucking beer tasting menu taster with most of these fancy places. Could easily. There's that varied amount of beers and that many different types and flavours.
This is sort of one of the things that I think beer has got going for it, but I think people tend to be can be a bit snobby about wine and beer, and the variety of different beers that you can have. I mean, there's over 100 different styles of beer.
Just even the amount of varieties of just like a lager. They're dramatically all different.
And you try all of those varieties of lager next door to one another, and you'll be able to pick different lagers out night and day. They're so different, and so I think it lends itself really, really well to food pairing. Not that we sort of like have suggested a tasting flight for anybody just yet, but
you know what? That's something that's got to be in the cards for some restaurants. There's some cool fucking places in Birmingham. I'm amazed no one's doing it.
There is beer sommeliers, isn't there? There is definitely beer sommeliers. I've seen them.
But I'd love to walk in. I'm not going to name any names of a restaurant, but just see the wine one, because it's starting to get cocktail ones that go with menus as well now. Be nice to see a beer option one and just see loads of different beers, flights you could have with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I want a can of each, so 7 cans with your dinner.
Yeah. Well, mind you, seven glasses of wine tends to get people on the way anyway, doesn't it? So.
Don't get me wrong, I still do the wine ones. That's only because there's no beer one.
There's just some things that are made, like pizza's made for beer, isn't it? A lager, a nice crisp lager with a pizza.
And curry.
That's
everything.
Lucky Saint with pizza is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's because beer's so good at. I actually had a little sort of a brief sort of beer and cheese session the other day, but because you got the bubbles in beer and also the bitterness in beer, it's really good at sort of scrubbing the kind of like the sort of greasy sort of like fatty flavors from food. Something like pizza, it's absolutely perfect for just like clearing the mouth out and just like leaving you really refreshed and ready to have like the full flavor experience again.
Yeah,
so that's why it's just perfect for it. And because something like wine, generally speaking, unless you're having pizza and champagne, which I don't know many people who do a lot of, like there's no bubbles in it. It's not as bitter, and so it's not as good at like sort of clearing that. So that like something like a lager is really, really good at that.
Sono would have champagne. Sono does. He has champagne with the KFC.
I don't know. We had champagne just doing the podcast. Turned up, there's a bottle of
Sam's Brown Ale. There's an alcohol-free ale as well called Sam's Brown Ale. I don't know if you see it. It's in a red bottle. I don't think they do anything other than this brown ale, but that with a Sunday roast. Oh, it's so good, man. So good. It's probably the same again, though. Probably cuts through the, like, because I do my roasters and Yorkshire in beef dripping, so it probably cuts through that nicely and you get all the flavours.
But then I bet you've got some like real rich flavours in there as well that are going to sort of like support everything.
The gravy, the gravy takes like hours to make, you know. Like, so.
I mean, I'm surprised it's not more popular. In fact, it surprises me that wine's used at all when you could use beer now.
Carl's just upsetting loads of people.
Yeah, wine's good too, don't worry.
Yeah, it's not a competition, man. Not a competition.
It's not competition, but I'd like the other option, you know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, I love wine. I just love anything with an A. Any kind of percentage, I'm probably going to drink it, to be fair.
What's the plans for the future? I know we kind of touched on stuff you wouldn't do.
It's a good place to start.
We've established what you wouldn't do. What do you kind of want to get into, what excites you?
Like I say, like the goal has always been just to sort of to be this kind of like I feel like a bit of a broken record now because I said it a lot, so I'm sorry. But we wanted to be like beer for Birmingham, like local people. I guess we want to be beer that sort of Brummies can go visit their mates and sort of take a couple of cans and say, look, this is what we've got. Come down here. This is really sort of, I don't know, have experiences around us as a brewery and the beer we make. And that's quite like a long term thing, but that's really excites me in terms of like a sort of quite a general up in the air sort of like airy fairy kind of view. But in terms of like practical, what's next? I think us expanding the brewery has been a big step, and I think now we kind of want to probably look to have a bar or two across another bar or two across the city. I think one of the things that we have all loved most about doing this for the last few years, about having Attic, was having the tap room and being able to sort of get to know people that would come in regularly, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what it's all about, right? And it's having somewhere where people will regularly go and get to know one another and start to meet people, and that's kind of I think that's something that we could do really well with another bar in somewhere that's a bit more like somewhere else that's sort of in a residential area. It doesn't have to be on Broad Street. It could be it's in like next to some people's houses, and you just sort of go like, oh, this is my neighbour. I always see him down the road, but never known his name. But I've had a few pints in me now, so I've gone over and sort of said hello. And then people get to know one another then. And
so it's essentially just putting pubs back to where they used to be, because that's what pubs were, weren't they? It was the centre of the community.
Yeah,
you went there and
vibe to them.
You met everyone, and
it's gone down, and then it's picking up again now, isn't it? Because they all closed down, they're all something else, and now you find the littler places are popping up.
That's it, yeah. And I think it's just like everything, it all just evolves, doesn't it? And people at the end of the day still want to go out and meet their mates somewhere and have a drink. It's the fact that certain pubs aren't working doesn't change that. And I think that actually what it probably is testament to the fact that, because what the pubs that are doing really well a lot of the time are independent ones. People who've got a real passion for running it, which is what pubs always used to have. They always used to have a landlord who had a real passion for it, knew all the customers, and they were there every night, and you'd always see them. They'd make friends with people, and now you're kind of getting that again. I think in terms of the smaller places, and people really get to know who's serving them the beer, and I think that was kind of lost for a bit in these big chains. So I kind of think it's, or in a way, coming full circle, in a way, sort of been updated in a very sort of modern way, and having
something about craft beer as well that just gets you chatting. I don't know why.
It's because it's said, like, if you just go into the pub and having a Carlin, a Carlin's a fucking Carlin.
Yeah, what you have, mate? Carlin? Yeah, me
Carlin.
too. Sound.
You go in and you're like, oh, what's that one on tap? Or can I try it? It sort of forces you to talk to someone.
It does, yeah. You say, well, what's yours like?
Yeah. Or even just about, you're like, oh, I haven't seen that one on tap before. Do you mind if I have a try? And then you're like, they're talking to you about it, and you're talking them back. And the amount of people you get to know just through stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like
it's a talking point, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it starts off probably a conversation, or in some cases an argument about something else.
There's nothing wrong with an argument, though. It can often lead to good friendship starting with an argument. I've got a few friends like that.
I remember the Welly like years ago. You just go into Welly and you go on. I used to go like a Tuesday afternoon because I had Tuesdays off, and just sit at the bar, and some bloke be like, "You want to try number 7, mate? Trust me, but just get the half, don't get the full."
Well, that was way before craft beer as well.
Yeah, that was a long time.
That was just all old ales.
I used to be into like, it was real ale then, when it camera real ale.
We used to go just try the whole menu.
I was mad for
See
things
if we
like
could
that.
get through it before they changed one.
And then I give up alcohol, and then all of a sudden like craft beer comes along as a revolution, and I'm like, what, motherfuckers. I used to have to drink. Do you know how many pints of Tetley I had to drink? Because that's the only ale I had.
Yeah. What's the other one you used to have?
John Smith's. I used to like John Smith's.
Warburton's.
No.
The one am I thinking of?
Worthington's.
Yeah, you used to drink that a lot.
Mate, but I'll tell you what, there was nothing better than Brew 11 down the rugby club. You have it anywhere else, it was the worst pint in the world. But Brew 11 at the rugby club.
Only after a big win, though, yeah.
There was two reasons why it was fucking brilliant. One, it was because nearly everyone drank it. But two, the two blokes who used to look after the pipes and the beer, that was their favourite drink. So they just looked after it. The Carlin was awful. Like the Carlin, you'd be like, what the fuck's that? He would literally pour a Carlin at the same time, pour a brew, and wait for them to say, anything else? And you say, yeah, just have a fucking brew, mate. It's like, don't drink, just have a brew.
Fucking hell.
Awesome, we're well over an hour.
It flies, doesn't it?
It does
Every
fucking
time it
fly,
flies. We'll ask you some quick questions. I don't know if you've heard the show or whatever.
Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we...
I think you guys have done a pretty good job, to be honest with you. I
all
think
the
you've covered kind of all the bases. Yeah.
It's fair.
All the big points and all that made me sweat a bit as well. So
There you go. We're getting there. Finally getting there. So these are just short. Well, I say short. I always say fucking short.
No, it's
questions.
never
It
short.
seems like it's been another
Take
hour.
as long as you want as well. There's no rush. I don't know why we're rushing people.
I know, there's no rush. But the idea
Just a bit
behind
of
it was
fun.
there were like quick fire questions when we came up with this idea. But, you know, just answer them. You'll know the answers. What's your favourite
It's quite
TV?
aggressive. Just answer them.
Just
All
answer,
right.
answer the fucking question. You know it. What's your favourite TV show?
I don't know, man. That is a difficult question. This isn't. This
At
isn't
the
the quick
moment, there's that much fucking TV.
This isn't the quick fire question round you wanted.
Yeah, I should say from the 90s or the 90s because there was nowhere near and as much telly then.
From the 90s, definitely Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That was my
You know, that's a good one to get. Yeah, I
childhood
remember
go-to.
watching that religiously. That was great.
Yeah, I don't know, man. At the moment, it's just like you said. It's just too much.
It's
stuff.
too much, isn't there? Like the save list on Amazon, my save list on Disney, the save list on all of them. It's just fucking. There's like 50 shows on each one.
And as soon as you click on there to have a look at something, there's something else. It's just like, what's the trailer for that?
Well, the amount of I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was just me, but just watching all the adverts on Netflix, just flicking through, watching the 30-second clips of the shows. I didn't realise that's a real thing that people do now. They just sit there and flick through. I
realise your evening's gone.
That's it. I've sat
You
down.
haven't got
Like,
time to watch
thought,
it.
I've got an hour. What can I watch? Half an hour later, you're still flicking through. You're like, I can't watch anything now. What's your favourite movie?
I would say that's probably $1 Million Baby. You know,
Good show.
I don't tend to watch films like twice. I don't tend to watch them more than once.
No.
So I kind of feel like I know the ending, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, you're done with
a
it.
bit of a simple character like that.
You know,
But that's the only one I've watched more than once, really.
what's your favourite band or artist?
I'm quite into sort of like old school soul music.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably Sam Cooke is my it's probably my go-to. That's my desert island.
What's your favourite spirit? I mean, specifically to the bottle.
What was it? I had a bottle of rum the other day, which was gorgeous. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. I'm not doing very well at your questions, am I?
Mate, you had some quicker than most people do.
Appleton Estate.
Appleton Estate.
Yeah, Appleton Estate rums. Not a huge rum drinker normally, or spirits drinker in general, but that was just like this.
What's your favourite beer that's not brewed in Birmingham?
It's Pilsner Urquell, definitely.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
So fresh.
definitely. And it's kind of the inspiration for us doing our Pilsner, the Birmingham Pilsner, and that was I mean, it's such a good beer. I mean, I think maybe we've done a better job of it ourselves. You know,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Have you been to Albert Schloss?
Yeah, I have been.
Had it for the. Is it much better? Because they make a big thing about how fresh it is. It comes 3 times a week, straight from the brewery.
To be fair, it was a really good pint. I've got to say, and they've got actually for such a big sort of like a big place, and I know that the people who own it they've got a lot of different places, but they've done such a good job of getting the beer right. So I can't knock them for that at all, because the beer, like we were saying about different types of lager, like they've got probably 10, 15 different lagers on, and you know, like it's great because people can try them and go like, do you know what? It's not just Carling, it's not just Foster's or whatever, but there's all these different lagers and they all taste great and they're all different.
That's because the gaffer loves it. That's like the fellow at the Mudby Club. It's because he absolutely loves it.
Just
Doesn't
stuck
he?
in what he wants. What's your favourite big fast food chain?
It's probably got to be Mackey's, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a
don't
common
know.
answer, Mac.
What you order from Mackey's?
I had them at Plant Burger the other day.
Is it
any good?
It was
it's
all right.
Beyond,
To be
beyond
fair.
meat, isn't it?
I
Beyond
think
meat.
so. Yeah, it was all right because I'm a veggie. I'm not vegan, but I'm a veggie, and so like, since I've done that, I've not really been able to eat much fast food, and like all of those sort of like veggie patties out there are absolutely rank. Because it's just like you bite into the bread and then you sort of like continue biting it. It all just feels like bread. It's horrible. So it was quite a nice change to have, to be fair. So yeah, it meant I could kind of go and eat some fast food again.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah,
What's your favourite type of takeaway?
it's got to be Indian.
Yeah,
Mate, we're in Birmingham.
Of course it is.
Is there another answer? Is there anybody who gives you another answer?
You know, the people do. Loads of people say Chinese. And
Yeah, Chinese. But
Chinese is a
I don't
popular
know if
one.
I said Chinese. I do like Chinese.
Yeah, and I wrote it down. Yeah, you've got Chinese right there.
Yeah, I like a Chinese.
Oh,
But
do you?
Indian's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Do you know if I was vegetarian, I could definitely... Indian...
Indian's the
There's
easiest
loads of
vegetarian
that.
food. Yeah, by a mile the
Brilliant.
easiest. It's great. What's your favourite food destination in the world or beer destination?
What, is it outside of the country?
Yeah.
I went to Chicago a couple of years back, and for beer, it was like absolutely ridiculous. It was great. Absolutely loved it.
Because the Americans have got some big craft revolution as well, haven't they?
Yeah. They sort of really kicked it off, I suppose.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, there was like loads going on. There was like some of the early ones were there, but then there was also some like really small scale beer production going on that were just producing some amazing stuff. Yeah, I'd probably give it to Chicago there, mostly for the beer, to be fair.
Well, I must have wrote this. I think I've wrote a question down when I'm pissed because I often add to this list and I definitely don't remember. Right? It's like I've just read this and gone, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to go with it. You can be the guinea pig for this question. I think I know the answer from one of your other answers. What's your favourite TV show theme tune?
Well, Fresh Prince is difficult to say no to.
Yeah. I can't fucking think why I've wrote that down.
You've got to at least do it on for like a follow-on.
It's so specific, that question.
I'd definitely stick it by the TV impression. That's such a... What would yours be?
Minder. I could be so good for you. We nearly played that at our wedding for our first dance. Genuinely. What would yours be?
I don't know. It's like Sopranos is pretty fucking good.
I like the Father Ted theme tune as well.
Oh, yeah, Father Ted.
Well, that's a classic one, that is. And it's by a great band as well. So you can't go wrong there.
No, I'll stick with Soprano. I can't get Wire out of my head because I'm watching The Wire.
Wire's so good.
Yeah.
It's got like nine different theme tunes though, so you've got to choose which version you want.
Yeah, that's true. Nah, I'll stick with Sopranos. That was cool.
And you kind of got me with The Wire there.
Zoe got me into The Wire because I'd never watched it, and then
I know he ignores me telling him it's the best TV show in the world. As soon as Zoe says it's the best TV show, I can't wait to watch it.
I might have to change my answer out from Fresh Prince.
I know we haven't answered this because that was an extra question I wrote down, but mine's probably The Wire.
It's so good.
It's painfully good, isn't it?
Well, now I'm gonna have to go and start watching that again. Thanks, guys. You've ruined the next 3 months of my life.
I've watched a season in less than a week, so.
Oh mate, it's one of them shows that just gets better and better.
Yeah.
Until the last series, anyway. I didn't really like the last series, but series 3 and 4 is just like
that's where it really kicks on.
Yeah, mouth open wide every episode type thing. It's crazy.
Awesome.
But no, that's all my questions, including my made up ones. I probably wrote down really pissed.
Some people come back drunk and write novels. Carl just writes questions.
Meaningless
questions. What's your favourite TV show?
Yeah, that's so fucking specific.
What a weird.
No idea where that's come from.
Awesome. Oli, massive thank you for inviting us down here and doing the podcast. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks very much for coming down. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been fun, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.